Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Dark Art Society podcast. I'm your host, Chet, and today we have Richard Metzger, which is very exciting. I wanted to help him promote his new Kickstarter project called Magick Show. That's Magick with a K, show.net. You can go there and check the Kickstarter out. A really cool project that we will talk about in the interview. Richard's goes way back to the 90s as a publisher, producer, writer of all things occult and just alternative underground cool stuff. So I was really excited to interview him, and the interview went great. So that's coming up. What's going on with me? I am still working on my show, Life and Death. Copro show opens October 12th. You can see this painting back here. I'm almost done with it. I got one more pass, I think, and I'm done. So I've just been doing that. Yeah, that's it. My life is consumed with this show. But it's coming along. It's coming along. I got to get some stuff out of the way before we start the interview. First off, if you want to support the Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/darkartsociety and join for as little as $1 a month. If you join at the $5 level, you get a 20% discount at Skullshop, SKULLSHOPPE.com. They make the best skulls. Amazing. Amazing, great skulls. I always talk about them on the show. You get your name read on the podcast. And we don't have new subscribers this month so far, but I missed one last month, and that was J, just the letter J. And I know who it is. And I know who it is because I know the name in the email. And so I didn't know if you wanted me to say your name. So if you want me to say your name on next week's show, let me know, and I will say your full name. I also wanted to mention, check this out, this Mark Ryden, new Mark Ryden book. Many of you know one of the reasons I started painting was because of Mark Ryden. I'm such a fan of his work, and somebody from his book publisher contacted me, sent me a book, and asked if I would mention it on the show. So it's called Mark Ryden, Yakalina Secrets. And it's amazing. It's really beautiful. Look at that. Really, really, really great book. So there it is. Awesome. Check it out. Always down to support anything Mark Ryden related. I think that's it. If you want to support my work, go to patreon.com/chetzar. You see everything I'm working on. You get to see all this stuff as it happens. Every day I post updated pictures. And then when the paintings are done, I post a time lapse of it. I do tutorials, all kinds of stuff. But that's it. Let's get on with the interview. It's a little bit shorter than usual because Richard has so much to do. He's in the middle of a Kickstarter campaign. And I could have kept talking to him for hours, though. It was awesome. So here we go. Hope you enjoy it. Richard Metzger. Hello, Richard.
Hello.
Thank you so much. How are you today? I'm good, except for this heat. I had to turn my AC off for this interview. And man, right. It's so hot. Yeah, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it. And it's great to meet you.
It's lovely to be here. And thank you for the invitation.
Your project, the Magick Show project, looks amazing. First thing I thought of when I saw it, because I just happened to see it, because I've been a part of like 5 Kickstarters. I've had 5 Kickstarters basically. And so I'm on the mailing list and stuff. And the first thing I thought is Magick Show. It's like, how did someone not think of that? So yet it's like such a perfect title for what you're doing.
Obvious.
It's like, it's obvious. It's one of those ideas. It's like, how did no one do this before?
I agree. But tell me, the whole concept is why did someone not do something like this as well? Like just something that takes it seriously, that isn't goofy.
Totally.
That takes the topic, what I'm trying to do is to it's taken as a given that everybody believes in magic or practices magic or
Right.
magic works.
Right, right. Yeah, can you I know that most people listen to the podcast for like the first 30 minutes, so I thought we should talk about the Kickstarter before we talk about anything else. So, could you explain, just to make sure that people get it, because that's my goal with this podcast is to try and get people to back your Kickstarter. So, if you could explain it for people who may not have heard of it.
Well, I interviewed 51 people, experts, real life occult practitioners, real life witches, authors, historians, experts in London, in Los Angeles, and in New York City over a span of 3 weeks, which was an aggressive sprint.
Wow. I assumed this was like a years-long project when I saw all those people on there.
Yeah, no, it was incredibly fun. It was a great adventure, but my God, was it exhausting.
I bet, yeah. It all looks cohesive, though. All the red backdrop. It looks like they're done kind of together, but I assumed it took longer than 3 weeks.
There were three different places where we set that up, and we tried to get it the same every time. But yeah, it worked, and we could get that many people in because we were in the location. They came to us. If we would have had to go to 51 people, it would have been a real drag. True. So they came to us. Like when we were in London, we rented a carriage house right in South Kensington, and put that in the living room, and then we slept in the bedrooms were downstairs. There were 3 bedrooms, so we had like it was a base. And people came to us, and we'd interview them for an hour, and then the next person would show up, and that would indicate, okay, it's time for you to go now, and time for you to sit down, and that just kept going on all day long. It was like chair jockeying.
Wow, amazing. So yeah, so I mean, it's you're kind of billing it as a master class on magic with a K.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it started life as a pilot, as a TV pilot. That was the idea, right? And it didn't get a great reception, shall we say? There's a rough cut but on the other hand, it didn't get a bad reception. Like it wasn't like people watched it and didn't like it. They didn't want to watch it. There was no celebrity attached to it. And that's really like, I guess that's where there's a lot of caution right now in the industry. And, so that sort of stymied anything, but it was just to the point where it just didn't seem like it was worth pursuing that. And so it sat around for a few more months. And one day I was talking to a friend of mine named Thomas Nagovin. He is the guy.
Thomas, he's great.
Oh, great. Well, he cut the new Caligula movies. We should put that, right? And out soon. And I was talking to him, and I just sort of casually mentioned this, and he said, "Wait a minute, you've got how many and what?" And I told him, and he's like, "Why don't you just finish this on Kickstarter?" And I'd never thought about that before. It never occurred to me.
So it never occurred.
Yeah. And so that's how it got there. But what happened was in the transition from it being, oh, we want this to be on television versus it's a Kickstarter thing, there was like a period of about a month where it completely morphed into something different. And what it is now in this masterclass thing is people have a chance to really, I don't have to cut things into 15 or 30-second sound bites.
Yes.
I let somebody tell an entire story or an anecdote that takes them 5 minutes to tell. It doesn't have the same demands that it be quick cutting and fast. And I'm less concerned with entertaining someone than I am with educating them. Although I hope to entertain them as well. And I think it's all really fascinating. Eric Middleman, who's shot and is editing the piece, has said repeatedly, if no one would ever turn this off.
Oh, that's great.
I thought that was like, okay.
Yeah. That's a great review. Yeah, it's funny because I saw all the people you had on it. I saw that you were involved with it. I saw that Mitch Horowitz and Grant Morrison. It's like to me, those guys you guys are celebrities to me. So it's funny because I think it's we have a different taste than I guess the masses in a way, and but I kind of feel like this stuff is ready to break through to the mainstream somewhat, especially because things are so desperate.
Yeah, that's my thought too.
Yeah. It's like, it would take something like that for people to consider that magic is real. The situation we're in right now, I think.
Well, that was the thing. I keep asking this question is like, well, if not now, when?
Right. Yeah.
And And is doing nothing an option
Right.
anymore?
Yeah, yeah.
I think the answer to those questions are pretty obvious.
Yeah.
And, it's just a shitty, dark time for humanity. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? We're at an inflection point where it could go either
I
way.
know. It's so
And that's,
freaky.
I know it's so freaky, but it could go either way. And and I think that, we should be prepared,
Yeah.
you know, for either eventuality. But but I think that there's we're in a dark time. There's a rise in fascism and people who
Hmm.
are shameless and bold liars who will deceive people for political gain or financial gain. And it's just a you know it's again it's just a bad time in human history.
Yeah.
And I think that if we push through to the other side, it could be great.
Yeah,
If
absolutely.
or it could regress into something that's fairly barbarian.
Yeah. To, to my thinking, it's kind of like these are the times that magic was made for. I mean, there's kind of like, the magic of, the high magic where it's like about enlightenment, and then there's more practical magic, results magic for making things happen in your life. And it's like, this is the time we need a tool to make things happen, I think. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
that's kind of what excites me so much about the project. Anything magic related that isn't stupid or cheesy, like you've got legit people from the
Mhm.
scene talking about it. So it's kind of like the uh, perfect group of people to I don't know, explain to younger people and people that are more open to it. I think more people are open to the idea of magic than ever before,
Absolutely.
you know?
Absolutely. I mean, people were raised on Harry Potter books
Right.
and Siuc films and this kind of thing, and they might feel it in them. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? And I'm looking to if to reach that person and sort of awaken that idea in them that they could do magic themselves.
Yeah, yeah. That's what's so great about magic is like you can do it yourself. You don't have to rely on anybody. You don't need you don't need a guru. You don't need a person to kind of like do anything for you. It's like
You don't need to recite anything or memorize
yeah,
anything or
it's like
put on
very
any costume or any of.
yeah, no, it's DIY and especially when you get into the kind of the chaos magic stuff, it's like, it's also, this podcast started off as just interviewing artists because I'm an artist and I know tons of artists in LA, and specifically what we call dark art, which is more like this weird stuff, kind of gothic, kind of just cool monsters and stuff like that, ghosts and stuff. It's like there's a whole little scene of us, and I love that kind of artwork. So I wanted to kind of create a podcast to promote that idea. Um, but it's I started introducing things that I'm interested in into the podcast and interviewing people like Mitch Horowitz and just people, spirituality, esoteric stuff, magic, and at first I was like, I wasn't so sure. I didn't know how people would react because I've been doing this for like 6 years, this podcast, and people love it. It's like I kept expecting to get negative feedback, or even from that kind of atheist crowd, like people think I was full of shit or something, or
Interesting.
and it's been nothing but love, really. So I feel like artists are more open to the idea that it's possible, that magic is possible, because we, as people who know it's real, kind of, assume that everybody knows it's real. But when you think about it, it's a tiny minority of people that really know it's a thing you can do. They get glimpses
Exactly.
of it in precognitive dreams and synchronicities and stuff, but they're still kind of like, it's just a coincidence.
Yeah, or they hear about it, spoken, chaos magic talked about in WandaVision or something like this, you know what I
Right,
mean? Or these MCU films, but they don't know that it's necessarily a real thing that you could do.
right,
It's not, you're not going to get to throw fireballs out of your hand.
right,
I mean, maybe some people will, but you know what I mean? But you could influence the world around you. You
right.
can make things happen in your favor. You can, as Dr. Christina Oakley Harrington says, the founder of Treadwell's books in London. She says that magic is to make the less likely more likely.
Right. Yeah, that's a good description.
Encourage synchronicities.
Yeah, yeah. I also like promoting it to it's mostly artists that listen to this podcast, I think. And so I like the idea of promoting this thing that can help us all, make money. Honestly, because we are the art community I'm part of and the artists I know, the coolest people. They're the people that if they had money, they would share it. They would help people. I mean, I'm sure money is corrupting on some level. If you get to a certain level, maybe, but I really feel like, it's good people need to have money to do projects like you're doing. It's like you having money is better than you having $10 million would be so much better for the world than, Elon Musk or one of these fascist people,
Well, I agree with you wholeheartedly.
So my point is, like, I look around, everybody I know is kind of struggling financially. And I'm like, we all have magic. It's like, why aren't we using that? You know what I mean? There's also hangups about money and stuff, but we have access to this other way of stacking the odds in our favor.
Artists are alchemists also. You know what I mean? You take an idea that comes out of your head and and then you turn that into money because someone will exchange money for that thing.
Right.
But I think of magic as sort of a metaphor for creativity, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
And I think that if you, I teach at the university and I show the students Kenneth Anger's films, and I say that the lesson you can learn from this is that this guy is thinking of this as a magic ritual.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think of anything that you do in those terms, your life will be enriched, but you will also have your creativity can bloom even more if you have that idea in your head and you keep that and I've always done that. That's just always been the way that I've looked at things. And I also think it's important, by the way, just change this up to people to use technology for magic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, AI is magic, obviously.
Yeah.
It's indistinguishable from, the advanced science is indistinguishable from magic.
Right.
As the saying goes.
Yeah. In a sense, we have we've probably got it's the most maybe potentially supportive moment in time for people who practice magic to manifest it maybe more easily than ever before because of technology, especially when it comes to group work and sharing stuff online and
agreed. Well, but look at the way that the binding Trump thing off, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So it was Michael Hughes, and
I know him also. He's been on the podcast.
Oh, great! He told me something that he put out and thought a few of his friends would get a kick out of, and it just turned into this thing.
I know.
And
it worked. It worked. It's amazing. Part of my magical journey has been. I'm sure you felt this way. Obviously, you felt this way because of all the stuff you've done in the past, you're publishing and stuff. But once you realize magic is real, you want to share it. You want to let people know because you're like, this is amazing. And you want to share it with people. I mean, you did that with all your books and your TV show and all this stuff. So, I feel like I want to share the good news. I want everybody to know this at least is an option, because I really do think it would be a world changing, seriously, if more people knew.
Well, I mean, Grant Morrison and Doug Rushkoff and I were on a Zoom call a few weeks ago, and Grant was making the point that, we're the old guys now, basically. You know what I mean? Like, we're the age that Robert Anton Wilson and they were at them for the first.
I know, it's scary.
So it fucking sucks, but I was always the youngest one,
Same here. Now I'm the oldest one.
I've
said that before on the podcast. I used to be the young guy. Now I'm the old guy. It's crazy.
Yeah. So it's aging. I don't recommend it. But he was saying that, it's sort of incumbent upon us to sort of pass the torch to other people,
right?
And and to teach magic and so I mean that's what I'm this is an entertainment thing. It was again it started off life as a meant to be a mainstream television thing. I mean in my naive mind, but the thing is, I mean should this Kickstarter be successful and we'd be able to finish these things, because it's basically there's 51 hours of stuff that's been shot, and there's a very good rough cut and then a very rough cut, and 50% of the material has not been really addressed beyond like sort of a paper cut.
Right.
I mean, I think once we are able to sit down and I have an editor, I'm working with, it will happen very quickly.
Right.
But right now it's still in pieces.
Yeah. Yeah. But you got the raw materials, which is kind of the important part. I want to see it happen. I'm gonna back it after the 9th when I get some money. For sure. So I haven't yet because I'm waiting for money to come in. But I want to see this thing. I want to watch it. It's like I want to see it happen because I for myself, selfishly, it's like this is the kind of programming I want.
Yeah, I mean, me too. I mean, that was my thought is that again, why hasn't someone done this? But when I have watched the I didn't watch the rough cut for a really long time. And then I watched it again, and I hadn't watched the longer rough cut that was, maybe 15 minutes longer than what is the more fine cut. Mm-hmm. And I really thought, I watched it and I thought, fuck, man, I would love this. If I didn't have anything to do with this, I would fucking love this. You know what I mean?
Right,
I compulsively watchable.
Yep.
And again, you have these, that's the other thing too, is that it's not this. I mean, yeah, I'm more the organizer of this than anything else. It's a conversation between 50 people,
right.
You know what I mean? Really intelligent people who are able to explain in a very captivating way what magic is in their lives and define it in a way that doesn't sound woo-woo right. or just incomprehensible or unscientific. You know right. what I mean? When someone like Mitch Horowitz, for instance, when he's talking about these things and he's comparing, what happens, the nuances of chaos mathematics and how that, there's an analogy there where it works with chaos, the way that chaos magic would work potentially. Mm-hmm. That doesn't sound like too much to somebody. But someone who's never thought about that before isn't going to say, "Oh, that just sounds like a bunch of bullshit." They would say, "Oh, that sounds reasonable," right. And then their mind into it. You know what I mean? So, but it's so it's the contribution of all of these people. I am amongst them that makes this a powerful project.
Yeah. Pulling.
That's the way that I see it. You know what I mean? If any one of these magicians or witches is powerful on their own,
right?
50 of them is very powerful,
right?
and it's if you look at the I just did some ads that are going to be running on Instagram and Facebook, I guess, and there's this kind of like Hollywood Squares, Brady Bunch type of like all the things, and it's a lot of people.
It's perfect.
It's a lot of people. And I was counting it up last night, and I was thinking like, because that was the other thing too, is because I had these people in front of me for an hour. And so I wasn't just going to ask them about one thing, right? Somebody like there's a guy in London named Phil Baker, right? He's a university professor and an author, and he's written books on Austin Osman Spare, who there's a piece on, William Burroughs, ditto, and also Aleister Crowley. So I could ask him questions about all three of those men, and have what I mean. And it was just like perfect. He was like he gave me so much, 1 hour that I could use throughout this show.
Right. Yeah. So is this, I want to mention too, that if you just go to magickshow.net we'll put it in the show notes and say it at the end and stuff too. Magick with the K, MAGICKSHOW.net, correct?
That is it.
Okay. And that'll take you to the Kickstarter. So, hopefully, all of the listeners will donate at least something. If you don't have much, you can donate $1. That all adds up.
It's funny. A lot of people do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
Surprised me. The thing about Kickstarter is that you have to kind of like look at it and say, okay, how many people are going to put money towards this? And if you look at what documentary and filmic projects typically get, it's usually the successful ones. It's between 400 and 600 people. So you have this kind of back engineer your
Yeah.
expectations and how much you're going to have to charge. So, okay, 400 people, how much do we need from each one of them to, and you start to think of it that way. And that's how these things go. I think our first tier is $99.
Hmm.
And that's the thing. It's, if you look at it as like a box set of video, that would be like $99 would be very expensive, but it's that this thing needs to exist. That's the
Right.
point, is finish it. So
Right.
that's where I think the people and the support is coming from. And some people are coming in and donating $5, $6,
Yeah.
$20, $30, $50, and because they want to see it happen. You know what I
Right.
mean? The thing about it is I don't know how this will be distributed or exploited
Right.
beyond sending it to the 200 or 300 or 400 or 500 Kickstarter backers.
Yeah.
I haven't even thought about that,
Right.
because it's now, from my expectations a year ago was to find a streamer that would want this and want more episodes. And
Right.
so now, it's like I say, it's this longer, more, sort of expansive conversation style thing. But I don't know where it will be exploited. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But I want to make sure it can be seen.
Right.
That's key to me. It needs to get out there. It needs
Yes.
to be seen multiple places all over the world.
Yeah. A YouTube channel seems to me to be the most obvious thing. I know you probably haven't thought much about distribution, as you were saying, but this dude made a documentary about me in 2016, I think. I can't remember. My memory's terrible, but it was really good. It was funded through Kickstarter, and it was like right at that crossover point where DVDs were still happening. Maybe it was 2013 when it came out. It was at that point where we finished the movie. He got a distribution deal with a distributor, and it came out on DVD, right? And this is right around the time people stopped buying DVDs, so we were able to sell some. He's not gonna ever make his money back from the distribution deal. No way. Because I sell the DVDs on my website. Hardly anybody buys them. And it's on, but it's on Tubi now for free, which is cool. But
Exactly.
the smartest thing would have been to fuck all that and put it on YouTube. That would have been the smartest thing, not get a distribution deal, because way more people would have seen it. He would have got way more press out of it. At least after, the Kickstarter was done, everyone got like their Blu-rays or whatever, their DVDs and like special editions and stuff. But having that, looking back now, I wish that's what we would have done, because I know other documentaries that have done that. Like there's one on Mike Watt or the Minutemen. That band, the Minutemen. There's a really good one about the Minutemen, and they immediately, after it did the film festival circuit, they just put it on YouTube, and it's got a ton of views, like a ton of views for a documentary about the Minutemen, which is like, not a lot of people know about the Minutemen, but now they do, and it's like, you can, if you have this amazing content and you've got it paid for, that's just one thing to think about, because you can make money from ads and sponsorships and stuff, and a Patreon. There's other ways of financing it over the long run, but just throwing that out there for what it's worth.
No, I appreciate the advice. I mean, I want to see it get out there too.
Yeah.
That's the goal, is for it to exist and then for it to be seen.
Right.
But that second part of it, I can't get my head around that.
Yeah.
Now.
You just got to raise.
Done.
I know Kickstarters are so crazy when you're in the middle of Kickstarters. They are so stressful.
It sucks. It fucking sucks.
Oh my God. Yeah.
It does. And there's always like a lull.
I know. Yep.
Now we are in that lull, I can assure you.
Yeah. There's a name for it. I forget what they call it. There's a name for the middle. There's like a mid Kickstarter lull. I've heard people refer to it as some term for it, but
purgatory. No, it sucks. It does suck. It's one of the most stressful things I've ever done. Except for walking the dog. I walk the dog for like 3 hours in the morning. I take our sheepadoodle out at the crack of dawn. And but other than that, I haven't been able to like really leave my house too much.
Yeah.
I made a trip to Kroger once. But other than, I've needed a haircut for like 6 weeks now. But it's not happening,
Yeah. Well, you're going to make it. It's definitely going to make it for sure. At the money you've got now, I think it's going to make it.
It could. I mean, I think it will too. It's we're going to start doing ads. I mean, what's happening now? Just I mean, I think hopefully some people will find this interesting, but it's when like disinformation. Dangerous Minds has like 53,000 Twitter followers and 4 million Facebook followers.
Wow.
Right. But I was not the person who did that. It was my wife Tara who did that, and she's the one who got that a following to be that huge, right? And she told me, and I sort of assumed that there would be some action on Facebook, and she was like, it's not what it used to be.
Yeah, right.
And I was shocked at just how little visibility. When you have a page, forget it. They're just not. A person's personal page will get more than a Facebook page, and so it's like it's like instead of like it being like 9,000, like you look at some of Dangerous Minds posts, like 9,000, 30,000 people have shared this on Facebook. It's like 4.
Right.
That's what 2. You know what I mean? It used to be like a long thing of comments. There are none.
Yeah.
So Facebook was just a complete bust, and Twitter has been okay, but I feel like I'm at this point, it's no longer a Venn diagram where it's spreading out at just one circle.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it's the same. It's just, and so, there's a guy who goes by the name of Astral Eyes with a Z. You might know him, and on Instagram, and he's sort of using his magic to sort of awaken that platform, because I really, that's something. I'm a married middle-aged man. What the fuck do I care about Instagram?
I know.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And I wish I would have, but like you're literally talking to somebody who has taken 0 selfies in his entire life. I do not care about that kind of thing. It doesn't interest me in any way.
Yeah.
I've taken them with other people, but I've never put my hand on a phone and taken a selfie.
Right.
No time. 0 times. So, so Instagram, it was so like, again, I wish that I would have taken advantage of that when it was new, and then I wouldn't have, 500 followers. So that one's a hard one to crack, but James has been helping me do that. Astralize has been helping me do that.
Excellent. And
also Brie Luna has been posting a lot of stuff, and she's got a massive following.
Cool.
On Instagram.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to do it too on mine. Well, use the podcast as an excuse to promote it and post it on Instagram. And I got like 124,000 on Instagram.
Oh, that's terrific.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to say that, like the podcasts that I've been on have really moved the dial.
Oh, good.
So I think when somebody is interested in, not necessarily interested in me, but just is interested in that podcast and listens to that podcast as a matter of routine, I think that if they discover this project through that, there's a lot of them do. Like I say, it moves the needle. There's no doubt about it. An hour-long podcast that I do, it has a positive effect.
Good
on backers.
Yeah. Excellent. Like and like I think the Dark Art Society listeners are kind of like your target audience too. It's we're dark artists and people that are into the occult and magic and spirituality. So hopefully we can help.
So I want to ask you something. So our mutual friend Mitch Horowitz, right? The other day he had on Twitter, he said, I can't remember exactly how it was worded, but he was saying that the people that you meet in the occult world are always the nicest people.
Right. Yeah.
They're always the friendliest people.
Yeah.
What's weird though is like some people, like you look at the way that they dress, you know what I mean, like someone who's like kind of like gothed out in that world, you know what I mean, and then but they're sort of putting, it's like the markings on a Black Widow spider. It's sort of saying like, hey, leave me alone, you know what I mean, to the outer world. But once you've in the magical world, you have more of a connection with somebody, right? And it's a more rare connection, and it's not like, oh, we're all fans of the Rolling Stones,
right?
Like that kind of thing.
Yeah. No, I've always thought, because Mitch and I have talked about that the people in the dark art world, the people who do this weird, creepy art, the nicest people. Always, like that was what making something that we discovered while making the guy that made the documentary about me, was like how nice everybody was. It was an odd, ratio. It was more normal nice people more nice people than you see kind of in normal society.
I tell you, for Magic Show, it was 100%.
Yeah, it's a trip,
It was
right?
100%. Yeah.
It's totally a trip. And so, you know, we've talked about that, Mitch and I, on the podcast actually many times. And I just think it's odd and cool. But I always kind of thought, like, as a person who makes their living creating this kind of artwork, that in a way it's kind of, you know, in the same way you mentioned people that dress all gothy and stuff, it's kind of like an asshole detector, you know? It's like people, you know, someone's cool that if they, you know, look normal and they think, oh, that's cool. You know, I always appreciate when I have art shows when very normal looking people like the work, because it's like, okay, that person is, you know, they're dressed normal, but they have an open mind and can appreciate this kind of artwork, you know? But I mean, I do see value in dressing all crazy and dressing goth. I don't do it myself. I kind of wish I was like that, but I'm just not like that. I'm from San Pedro, you know, it's like, I'm just not like that. I'm like t-shirt and shorts everywhere. It's just the way I am. But I don't know. Anyway, I wanted to talk to you before I don't want to run out of time, because I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your own experience with Magick. I just recently, you know, I have been having, you know, with Mitch being on he's been on the podcast 3 or 4 times. And so, lots of Magick talk in the last few years on the podcast. And, a friend of mine who's a listener of the show, he was having financial troubles. I'm like, dude, just do a sigil. And I gave him the, disinformation Grant Morrison video. Another great contribution to society that you've done. That video is amazing. You know, that's like a game-changing video for so many people. But anyway, I like explained the quick overview, check out these couple videos and just do it. Trust me. And he was like, he did it. And he's like, it worked. It scared the shit out of me. So it's like, I feel like getting people to try it once is kind of key to prove that it works.
Oh yeah.
You
yeah,
know?
no, I'll give you an example of being in need of money once in my life, like really badly in need of money, and doing a bit of money magic. And my wife says to me, you know, we're down to, you know, X amount of dollars in our bank account, right? And you got to do something. You got to do something. And so I opted to walk the dog at that point. And when I came back in, I realized, oh, I hadn't gotten the mail from the day before. And in the mail from the day before, even before I'd done the magic, okay, was a check for $12,000.
Oh, wow.
I had no idea was coming to me.
That's the way magic works, though. People don't get it. It's like
to make the less likely more likely.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I mean, how many times have you been broke as shit and then suddenly someone gives you 12? It's just, I mean, you know what I mean? Like when your life is about ready to like hit like an egg on the sidewalk, you know what I mean? It's like, and someone snatches it up and says, no, here's 12 grand,
yeah,
buddy. You know, but that happened. That happened.
Yeah. And, you know, a skeptic is going to say, oh, well, it was going to happen anyway, but it's like magic does not.
But you know, the thing, but what are the odds? And the thing what are that? And I'll tell you what the odds are of that. 100%, because it did happen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I saw in another podcast you talking about your crazy synchronicities, impossible synchronicities is what I call them. And I've had a ton of them too. Like I've had, and I'm pretty sure you're this way. I've had so many that it's just absolutely undeniable that it's not coincidence. Way too many weird ones that are just absolutely impossible. I mean, I've had a few kind of precognitive dreams that were impossible and stuff like that. I've seen weird stuff, had all kinds of, you know, enlightenment experiences and from psychedelics and stuff like that. But the synchronicities in regular everyday life that are just impossible. They're impossible. So it's like, I feel like if you get someone on the path and they start experiencing these synchronicities and it doesn't make, and they know it's okay. And it's not, doesn't mean they're going crazy. That's kind of like a doorway in, you know?
Oh, that is the way in, if you ask me. I mean, that's to me. I mean, my definition of magic is fairly secular in a sense. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Like, I'm more of the when Crowley writes about the magical way to open a door is to walk across the room and turn the handle and pull.
Right.
Is I mean you have to apply the right force in the right place.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then if you want to print a book, you better call a printing press.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Instead of just praying about it. You know what I mean? There's practicalities of it. And we live in an age of technology where it's very easy to reach out to people and find allies and do all this other kind of stuff. So as I was saying before, I look at everything that I do as a spell. So a company like Disinformation was a spell. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So everything that part of that was so money would come in and more projects could go out, and that was But I looked at it that way as a magical company,
Right.
right? But it could be anything. I mean, it could be art, it could be a theater, it could be or indeed our architecture, anything with that right mindset, you know,
Everything.
is magic.
Everything
But
with that mindset is
yeah,
magic. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
but that doesn't really explain the weirder side of things,
Right.
right? And so, what the synchronicity situation does is when someone first starts doing magic, and then the synchronicities just go wild and go off the charts. You know what I mean? And I think that's the whole idea of crossing the abyss, because you have to realize, okay, am I turning schizophrenic,
Right.
or is this really happening? Is
Right.
this really happening? Right. And so that's what those synchronicities do. They sort of clue you into that. But again, you have to sort of separate the signal from the noise in a big way. I think that's a really important thing. But when that is as it were, the teaching, it's what is, so that's the other thing too, is like, so these synchronicities happen. What is the entity? What is the thing? Why is this happening? And how is it being done? And I'm going to give you a really good synchronicity story that I
Okay.
think will blow. Okay. But think about this. So one day, this is in maybe 1987, 88, 89, late 80s. And I'm sitting on the floor of an apartment that I was renting on 7th Street and Avenue A in New York City. And I'm cleaning up my bookshelves. So I'm sitting on the floor. There's stacks of magazines around me. And on top of one of the stacks of magazines, an 8 by 10 glossy of an ex-girlfriend of mine. And my current girlfriend comes in and she looks down and she says, "I know her." And I said, "That doesn't make any sense," because she's British, right? Not my girlfriend, but the ex-girlfriend. I was like, "While you were in London, she was in New York living with me, and I can't imagine that your paths would have crossed." You know what I mean? And this was somebody who was, young enough that you were talking about a small. My dogs are going nuts. There's a limited window of opportunity, so that was easy, an easy statement to make, right?
Right.
And she's like, "Nope, I know this woman. I'm absolutely sure I know her." She goes into her room, our bedroom. She comes out with her address book and says the address of where that woman lived. And I was like, holy shit. And then she told me the story of how they met. Okay. I hope that this woman is not listening to this story, but she was somebody who was very uptight, and when she moved to New York to be with me, she kept her apartment and paid for her apartment, her share of the apartment of a house that she was living in North London, and said, "No one can go into this room. Absolutely no one can go into this room." And she's the type that would maybe tie a hair around a doorknob. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that was what she did. So she's got this empty room in this big house in North London, living with me in New York City. We don't get along so well, and it really doesn't work out. And she decides that she is going to move back home. She's going to move back to London and back into that house. So back to London. There's one of her roommates has a girlfriend, right? And her name is Susanna. Okay. And not her real name, but we'll call her Susanna. And just remember that for a second. Just she's going to come back into the picture a little bit later.
Okay.
And I'm going to shut the door now because the postman is obviously here. Hang on one
We're a
second.
dog-friendly podcast. I have dogs barking in the background all the time, so it's not a problem.
Good to hear it. So where was I? But back in London, there are these two American girls who they have to give up their apartment because the lease is up, and their landlord is a prick, and he went, "No, you have to sign another year lease." And they're like, "No, we're leaving in like a month, so we're not going to." So one of the roommates of the British girlfriend of mine who's living there, he says, "You can just stay here." Right. So he keeps Susanna is his girlfriend. And then there was another girlfriend, and we'll call her Jay. Okay, we'll call her Jay, and so she's sleeping in the bedroom of the woman who I'm sleeping in the bed with in New York City. Okay. And then so in New York City, right, we stopped getting along. So instead, and so they knew that she was going to be coming back. So they knew that there was a date where they had to be out of there, right? But she decided that she was going to leave 2 weeks early because she hated me, right? And so she did. So she goes back and she gets there in the middle of the night, and this woman is sleeping in her bed. And she gets furious and she makes a big scene about it. So I heard. I wasn't there. But so think about that. So that the woman, the American woman in London becomes my next girlfriend. So literally two women who I've slept with, you know what I'm saying, and who shared a bed with, they crisscross in that way.
Yeah.
And I mean, so how do you figure that? But it gets a little bit better. And so later, this girl, Susanna, ends up sharing an apartment with me, and she and I have the same birthday, right? So there was all of that connection to it. But here's an even weirder thing. So with Jay, one day her mother comes to visit, right? And her mother was this very beautiful woman in her late 40s, and she had been like a groupie basically in the 70s, and she was the girlfriend at one point of Don Preston of the Mothers of Invention.
Oh,
right?
wow. Mm-hmm.
So we're walking around the East Village. She comes to visit us in New York. We're walking around the East Village, and we walk past this 109 St. Mark's Place, right?
Mm.
Which is an apartment building that I used to live in. And then she says, "Oh, I used to live here at 109." Want to hear the best part about it? She and Don Preston lived in the same apartment that I subleased for a short period of time.
That's insane. It's impossible.
Isn't that right? Again, but that's the thing is you think, okay, what are the odds of that having happened? Well, again, 100% because it did happen. And that's what you have to say to people when you tell a story like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Well,
the thing is, I just want to finish up. You think about this, and you think like, oh, well, what did you learn from that? Or what did that mean? Was this like your soulmate, the love of your life? None of this. It added up to nothing. Zero. Zip. There was no message, but I became aware of the fact that kind of thing could happen. And then it started happening more and more and more. And it took about 10 years, I think, before I really got the message that something was organizing this.
Right. Yeah.
For me, and that's the thing is like, when you have other people who are witnesses to something, it didn't just happen to you in your head. It's not like, oh, I was thinking about that person and they called. Well, you can't really prove that.
Right.
The story is, there were other people involved. You know what I mean? They had to be moved around like chess pieces, 40 years, but not 40, but 20 years prior when, the same apartment building.
Yeah.
After the first story, it's really nuts. But again, it happened.
Right. Yeah.
What does it mean? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, to me, the message is the universe is conscious, and there's a bunch of weird shit going on that we don't understand. But there's like an organizing principle in the universe, and it's communicating with us and playful. Absolutely.
Yes.
And sometimes it does the dumbest shit. The synchronicities are like ridiculous. It's so absurd that you laugh, and they're kind of like, oh, the universe has a good sense of humor, actually.
Yeah. I've had that thing before. When you start to think like, oh, something is fucking with me.
Yeah.
And that's when you start to believe, that's when you start to be like, okay, I'm testing this. Am I schizophrenic or am I not schizophrenic? Right. And then there comes a point where it's like, you almost, like at one point I was having a spate of synchronicities happening. And I said to this entity, if you are a separate entity from me, right? Prove it. Prove to me that I am not schizophrenic with something that is so absolutely like mind-boggling. I told this story in another podcast, but I one day I was working in this hotel, and I had I won't tell the whole story, but I had sent a fax earlier that day to a record label in Italy, in Rome, because I wanted to license 2 of their tracks for this thing that I was going to put out, right? And then so I had sent the fax to this woman at this record label, and right after I sort of asked the entity, like, okay, so prove it, give me something that is just so like boom in the face, it's undeniable. Well, guess what? That woman who I had faxed earlier that afternoon at 7 o'clock in the evening, came and presented her credit card to me at my hotel, the desk of the hotel where I was working as a concierge.
Whoa. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. And it's like when you experience when you experience that, you know this is real. You know it's real. And you know, people could say, "Oh, Richard's lying" or "Chet's lying," but when you experience it yourself, that's the real proof.
Well, the thing, like I say, all of my stories, it's obvious that I'm not lying because I've got the receipts or a witness or several witnesses that could attest.
Right.
You know, so that's so that there's
Definitely.
that too.
There's that, but you know what I'm saying. It's like when it happens to you.
Oh, you know it when it happens.
Yeah.
You know it when it happens. And the thing about it, and I think that one of the ways that it happens is that you want it to happen.
Right.
You really want it to happen. And with me, it was psychedelic drugs.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
It was psychedelic drugs. I went through a period of about 2 months where I was smoking DMT all the time, 4 times a day.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And downing like 5 grams of mushrooms and laying in the darkness.
Wow.
But there was just a period where I was just like depressed. I needed new ideas.
Mm-hmm.
It's a new thing. I just wanted to just blow up what my life had been at that point. Just do something completely different than I had been doing. To zig where I had been zagging. Right. And so I spent a period of introspection and doing a lot of psychedelics. Well, something noticed me.
Right.
That's all I can. Yeah. That's the only way I can explain it.
Yeah.
It's something noticed. It was kind of weird, and then I got used to it, and then I proved to myself repeatedly that this is not me. This is like something fucking. This is something fucking with me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it does take that that it does take that form of just sort of being fucked with.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Joke.
Yeah.
It's like something or someone has organized it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I have to tell you a couple things real quick, but I got to tell you my synchronicity story, one of the many crazy ones. But back in '87 was when I had my big. It was. Remember the harmonic convergence?
I do.
We got together, a friend of mine, which is another crazy. I have so many. Hopefully, when things calm down and your Kickstarter's done and you got the show going, you can come back again sometime because there's so many cool things to talk about. But I got together with one of my best friends to do a Ouija board. He got this weird Ouija board called the Ziria board, and he invited his friend from CalArts, which ended up being my wife. Who I've been married with for 30 something years. We got together on the harmonic convergence. We ended up contacting some entity on a Ouija board, basically tripping about every weekend. My wife is the sober one, the kind of more the clairvoyant medium that was just sort of, skeptical, but kind of like kept us grounded. Anyway, my friend and I would do the trips, had all these, that's how I had my big spiritual, I don't know, mystical experience every weekend basically. And I was like, I was raised, my mom's kind of new age. So I was kind of raised with this stuff. So it wasn't like I ever thought I was crazy. It was more like, oh, it's real. Like my mom said, but, right around that time, I got my first job in makeup effects, working on this movie called The Blob, the remake of the 50s Blob. And so it was like, so exciting. I discovered psychedelics. I discovered punk rock too. I was into punk. So it was like just this big turning point for me in my life. I got my dream job. And so we were doing all this stuff on the weekend, and during the Ouija board sessions, I had a punk band at the time. And one of the friends, the guy that invited my wife to the session, Ouija board session, he's like, oh, there's this great song called Bony Fingers by Hoyt Axton. You know Hoyt Axton?
I do.
He's like, your punk band should cover it. Cause like Dead Kennedys covered Rawhide. It was like a thing for punk bands to cover funny songs. Anyways, this goofy, jokey country song called Bony. It's actually a great song. he was always bugging me, and I would be like, that's not a real song, you're making it up. But he's like, no, really, it goes, the chorus is work your fingers to the bone, and what do you get? Bony fingers. It'd be perfect. And I was like, yeah, whatever. Didn't believe him. It was a running joke. We ended up doing the song in the band, and it was like amazing. It was a great cover song. Just played it like super fast, and it was just perfect. So I'm working on the Blob right around that time, and my boss comes to me and he says, oh, I'm going to give you this effect to be in charge of, and the actor's coming in, and you got to do his life cast, and you'll be in charge of the effect. And it was like my first time I was going to be in charge of a makeup effect. It was
a Hoyt Axton.
It was Hoyt Axton.
No, wow. That's a very specific thing.
Totally right. You know, I was like, holy shit. And it's like, I've had other ones that crazy too, you know. It's like when something like that happens, it's just like, there's no way that could happen, but it happened. It was amazing. Anyway, that was just one of many I could share with you, but you know, hopefully people will hear this. If they haven't messed around with this stuff, they will try it for themselves. I always recommend do a sigil Magick to try things out and see where it goes from there, because it's so easy and it works usually, you know. So but anyway.
Yeah, I think that's a good recommendation. I also think that if somebody is really serious about it, they should try to figure out how to get in touch with the thing that makes coincidences happen.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, meditation is also that's the one, the drug-free alternative. If you're, you know, squeamish about doing psychedelics, squeamish about doing ceremonial magic, meditation is kind of this foundational thing. But it just takes a long time. I mean, it's good for you though. It's like exercise. You do it every day. It takes a long time, but you'll start getting those from meditating a long time too. You'll start seeing stuff like that. So
yeah, I should try meditation sometime. I'm too jittery of a person, I think, to
it'll help. It'll help with the jitters.
Yeah. Now that I'm older, maybe I'm calming down a little bit more.
Yeah.
But with psychedelics will knock the door down.
Yeah.
It'll just go right off its hinges.
Well, that was the thing. By the end of the summer, it was the summer of '87. By the end, we'd done it so much that I built up a tolerance, and I kept getting this message. It's like, okay, you know what's there. You know it's real. Now you have to meditate to maintain that. And I tried meditating my whole life, and I would always fall off the wagon. I'd do it for a couple months, it's like meditation has to be every day. It has to be every day for a long time. And finally, like about 6 or 7 years ago, I started like really getting into magic, like ceremonial magic, just to learn what I kind of already knew through my mother. And I don't know, just trying to get a better, more formal education about it. And I started meditating, and I finally was able to do it to where it's like every day. And it really is amazing. When you do it for like a year or two, you'll notice a difference, you know, in the calmness and not that, you know, you could do it in the middle of a Kickstarter or anything, but I was finally able to do it. And I was like, God damn it. Why didn't I do it when I was like 20 or whatever, when this voice was telling me? I wish I had the discipline, but I just did not have it at the time. But anyway, I know you got to go, you got things to do. And, man, it was great talking to you. I hope, like I said, hopefully you'll come back again sometime and we could just maybe talk about weird shit. I mean,
oh yeah. It's a real pleasure. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, so many. I mean, everything you're into is stuff I'm into. It's like I grew up. I don't know. We must have grown up on the same stuff. It's like all the stuff you published in your TV show. I was watching the disinformation TV show on YouTube episodes, and it's like, this is all stuff I know. This is all stuff I'm into. Like, you know, weird outsider music, and I don't know. I think
that show's almost 25 years old.
I know. It's crazy. It's crazy. You guys were so ahead of the curve on this stuff too. Like, talk about cutting edge stuff. It's like a lot of this stuff is in the mainstream now, you know? And anyway, I could keep going. I know you need to go, but, so tell again, it's Magick Show, Magick with the K, Magick show, SHOW.net, correct?
Magickshow with a K.net. That's it. And that'll take you right to the Kickstarter.
Yes. And everybody, please support. You want to see good stuff in the world, you got to support it, even if it's a buck. But try and do the $99 one. I ask all of my listeners if you could do that. We would appreciate it.
It'll be great.
Yes. All right. And the last thing we have to do is you have to say goodbye to the audience. This is a stupid custom I have in the show. You say goodbye to the audience in whatever way you like. So go ahead.
Goodbye and good luck.
Goodbye, everybody. Thanks for listening.